The strange encounter. The spaceship Orion drifted quietly in the vast darkness of space. Alex Carter, a seasoned explorer and the ship's only occupant, sat in his small cockpit, sipping a cup of synthetic coffee. He had spent weeks mapping uncharted sectors, enjoying the silence that came with solitude. But that peace shattered when the alarm blared. A loud, frantic knock echoed from the airlock. Alex froze, his mug slipping from his hand and shattering on the floor. His heart raced as the knocking grew louder. He wasn't expecting visitors, not in this desolate region of space. Grabbing his plasma pistol, Alex moved cautiously toward the airlock. The knocking stopped, replaced by a muffled voice. Through the intercom, a feminine tone spoke, strained and desperate. "Please, let me in. They're coming for me." Alex hesitated, his finger hovering over the intercom button. His instinct screamed that this could be a trap. Space was unforgiving, and trust was often a mistake. But there was something in her voice, a raw fear that felt too real to ignore. "Who are you?" Alex demanded, keeping his pistol steady. "I'm Kala," the voice replied. "I don't have time to explain. If you don't open the door, they'll find me, and they'll find you too." Alex's jaw tightened. He glanced at the scanner. It showed no ships nearby. Whoever she was, she seemed alone. Against his better judgment, he pressed the button to unlock the airlock. The door hissed open, and Kala stumbled inside. She was humanoid, but not entirely human. Her skin shimmered with a faint iridescent glow, shifting between shades of silver and blue. Her hair flowed like liquid metal, and her wide dark eyes darted around the room as if expecting an attack at any moment. "Close it. Now," she cried. Alex slammed the button, and the airlock sealed shut. Kala leaned against the wall, catching her breath. Up close, Alex noticed faint scars etched across her arms and neck, signs of a hard life. "Start talking," Alex said, his voice firm. "Who are you, and what's going on?" Kala looked at him, her expression a mix of gratitude and panic. "I escaped from a hunter ship. They've been tracking me for days." "Hunters?" Alex raised an eyebrow. "What did you do to get their attention?" Kala hesitated, glancing at the scanner. "It's not about what I did. It's about what I am." Alex frowned. "Care to explain that?" Before she could answer, the ship shuddered. The proximity alarm blared, and Alex spun toward the control panel. The scanner now showed a massive ship entering their sector, its design predatory and alien. "They found us," Kala whispered, her voice trembling. Alex cursed under his breath and began typing commands into the console. "You brought them here. I didn't have a choice." Kala snapped. "If you'd left me out there, they would have killed me. And then they'd come for you anyway." "And why would they bother with me?" Alex asked, narrowing his eyes. Kala stepped closer, her glowing skin dimming slightly. "Because you're human, and humans are useful." Alex's grip tightened on his pistol. "You're not making sense." Kala took a deep breath, her gaze locking onto his. "Listen carefully. My species has a survival ritual, one that can protect us from detection. But I can't do it alone. I need someone to help me." "A ritual?" Alex echoed, his skepticism clear. "This just keeps getting better." Kala's tone turned pleading. "If we don't do it, they'll capture us both. And trust me, you don't want to know what they do to prisoners." The ship rocked again as the hunter vessel drew closer, its weapons systems powering up. Alex's mind raced. He didn't trust Kala, but the predator ship left him no choice. "Fine," he said through gritted teeth. "What do I need to do?" Kala reached out and grabbed his hand, her touch surprisingly warm. "First, you have to trust me." "I already regret this," Alex muttered. As the predator ship loomed closer, Kala began to explain the first steps of the ritual. But Alex couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't telling him everything. And in the cold, unforgiving void of space, secrets could be deadly. You've got about 2 minutes to explain this so-called ritual, Alex snapped, his voice taut with frustration. Because if this is some kind of scam, it's a terrible time to pull it. Kala turned to him, her dark eyes wide with urgency. It's not a scam. It's a bond. A survival mechanism my species developed to mask ourselves from predators like them. She motioned toward the scanner, which now showed the enemy ship mere kilometers away. But it only works if I link with someone outside my kind. Alex glanced at her, suspicious. Link? What does that even mean? Kala hesitated, searching for the right words. It's emerging. Of thoughts, emotions, instincts. It's how we hide our presence. The predator ship uses advanced bio-trackers to hunt life forms. If we complete the ritual, they won't be able to detect us. Merging. Alex repeated, his stomach nodding. You mean, like, mind reading? It's more than that. Kala said quietly. It's deeper. You'll feel what I feel, see what I've seen, and I'll experience the same from you. That sounds like a nightmare, Alex muttered, his mind racing. Why can't you do this on your own? Kala's expression darkened. Because I'm not strong enough. The bond amplifies both of us. It's the only way. The ship rocked violently as a warning shot from the predator ship grazed their shields. Alex cursed under his breath. He was running out of options, and he knew it. All right, he said reluctantly. What do I have to do? Kala's shoulders relaxed slightly, though her face remained tense. Sit down. I'll guide you through it. Alex dropped into the chair next to her, gripping the armrests as if they could anchor him to reality. Kala knelt in front of him, her glowing hands resting lightly on his temples. Her touch sent a strange warmth through him, not unpleasant but unnervingly alien. Close your eyes, she instructed softly. Focus on your breathing. Let everything else fade away. Alex obeyed, though his mind buzzed with doubt and fear. The hum of the ship, the distant thrum of the predator vessel, even the ache in his muscles, they all seemed to dissolve as Kala's voice guided him deeper into a trance-like state. I'm going to open my mind to you, she said. It'll feel strange at first, but don't fight it. Suddenly, Alex felt a surge of energy, like a current flowing from her hands into his head. Images flashed in his mind, vivid, chaotic, and overwhelming. He saw alien landscapes bathed in light, heard strange melodies that felt ancient and sacred, and felt emotions that weren't his own. Fear, loss, defiance. Slow down, he gasped, his eyes snapping open. His heart pounded as if he'd just run a marathon. What was that? That was just the beginning, Kala said, her voice tinged with exhaustion. Our minds are adjusting to each other. The next step is harder. Alex wiped sweat from his brow. Harder? You could have warned me. We don't have time for warnings, she said sharply. The predator ship is locking onto us. If we don't finish this now, we're both dead. Her urgency reignited Alex's focus. Fine. What's next? Kala leaned closer, her glowing skin pulsing faintly. Now, you have to let me in. Completely. No walls, no secrets. I need to know who you are, everything you've hidden, everything you've buried. Alex stiffened. I don't think I like that idea. Kala's gaze softened, a flicker of empathy crossing her face. I understand. But if you don't let me in, the bond won't work. And if the bond doesn't work, they'll find us. The ship shook again, more violently this time. The predator vessel was firing to disable, not destroy. Yet, Alex's jaw tightened. He hated the thought of exposing himself to a stranger, especially an alien. But he hated dying even more. All right, he said through clenched teeth. Do it. Kala placed her hands on his temples again, and this time, the energy flowed stronger, deeper. Alex felt her presence invade his mind, peeling back layers of his consciousness. Memories he'd long suppressed resurfaced. The pain of losing his family, the guilt of decisions he couldn't undo, the loneliness that haunted him even in the vastness of space. But as Kala delved into his mind, Alex felt something unexpected. She wasn't just taking, she was giving. He glimpsed fragments of her life. A childhood spent running from predators, a family torn apart, the crushing weight of survival. Despite her alien nature, her pain mirrored his own. When the connection finally broke, Alex gasped for air, his body trembling. Kala looked just as drained, her glowing skin now faint and flickering. "It's done," she said weakly. "We're bonded." Before Alex could respond, the scanner blinked. The Predator ship had stopped firing. Its scanners swept over them once, twice, then moved on as if they weren't there. "They can't see us," Kala whispered, relief washing over her face. Alex leaned back in his chair, his mind spinning. The ritual had worked, but at what cost? "Don't get too comfortable," he said, his voice hoarse. "Something tells me this isn't over." Kala nodded, her expression grim. "You're right. The bond saved us. For now. But the real challenge is just beginning." And deep in the void of space, the Predator ship still lingered, its shadow a reminder that survival was never guaranteed. The stalker revealed. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the faint hum of the ship's systems. Alex sat slumped in the pilot's chair, still recovering from the mental invasion that Kala called a bond. His mind felt like it had been turned inside out, yet he couldn't shake the sense of Kala's presence lingering at the edges of his thoughts. She stood by the scanner, her iridescent skin now a pale, almost ghostly hue. Her eyes flickered between the control panel and the dark void outside the viewport. "They're still out there," she said softly, almost to herself. Alex groaned and straightened up, rubbing his temples. "What do you mean?" "The bond worked. Their scanners didn't pick us up." Kala shook her head. "It doesn't mean they've given up. They're hunters. They're patient." As if on cue, a new alarm blared through the cockpit. Alex's eyes darted to the display, and his stomach dropped. The Predator ship, massive and ominous, had shifted its position. It was no longer searching aimlessly. It was moving deliberately, closing the distance between them. "What the hell?" Alex snapped. "I thought you said they wouldn't find us." Kala's glowing hands tightened into fists. "They shouldn't have. Unless..." Her voice trailed off, and her expression darkened. "Unless what?" Alex demanded, rising from his chair. Kala hesitated, then met his gaze. "Unless they've already marked you." "Marked me?" Alex repeated, his frustration boiling over. "What does that even mean?" Kala took a step closer, her voice urgent. "The hunters track their prey by more than just biosignatures. They leave marks. Traces of energy, pheromones, even subconscious imprints. If they've encountered you before, you might still carry their mark." Alex stared at her, a cold realization settling in. "I've never met these things before. At least, not that I remember." Kala's gaze softened, but her tone was grim. "Memory isn't always reliable when it comes to them. Their technology, their methods, they can erase or manipulate what you think you know." Alex clenched his jaw, the pieces starting to fit together. His last mission before taking this solo exploration gig had ended in a catastrophic ambush. His team had been wiped out, and he had barely escaped with his life. He had always assumed it was pirates or mercenaries, but now he wasn't so sure. "They were there," Alex said quietly, the memory surfacing like a bruise pressed too hard. "That ambush, it wasn't random, was it?" Kala's silence was answer enough. The Predator ship loomed closer on the scanner, its silhouette a menacing blur against the stars. Alex snapped out of his thoughts and turned to Kala. "If they've marked me, how do we stop them?" Kala hesitated, her glowing skin flickering, as if she were struggling with the weight of her own answer. "There's a way to remove the mark, but it's dangerous." Alex folded his arms, his patience wearing thin. "Define dangerous." Kala's gaze dropped to the floor. We have to lure them in, close enough for me to access their systems. I can use the bond to erase the mark, but only if we're within range of their bionetwork. Lure them in, Alex echoed, incredulous. You want me to invite those monsters to my doorstep? It's the only way. Kala snapped, her voice rising. If we don't, they'll keep tracking us. They won't stop until we're both dead. Alex stared at her, weighing his options. It wasn't much of a choice. Either he trusted her plan and risked everything, or he ran and delayed the inevitable. Fine, he said finally. But if this goes south, I'm blaming you. Kala gave a faint, weary smile. Fair enough. The trap is set. The plan was simple in theory, reckless in execution. Alex set the ship to emit a faint energy pulse, a beacon designed to mimic a failing stealth drive. It was just enough to catch the Predator ship's attention without giving away their exact location. They'll think we're crippled, Kala explained as she adjusted the settings. Hunters are drawn to weakness. They won't be able to resist. Alex tightened his grip on the controls. Great. We're bait. What happens when they take the bait? Kala glanced at him, her expression unreadable. Then we fight. The scanner beeped, and Alex's stomach dropped. The Predator ship was closing in fast, its jagged silhouette growing larger on the viewport. It wasn't just a ship, it was a predator in every sense, sleek and deadly, its weapons glowing faintly with an eerie blue light. They're locking on, Alex said, his voice tight. This better work. Kala moved to the center of the cockpit and sat cross-legged on the floor, her eyes closing as she began to hum softly. Her skin brightened, the glow spreading outward like ripples in a pond. Alex felt the bond between them strengthen, her presence in his mind growing sharper, more insistent. They're here, she murmured. I can feel them. The Predator ship stopped just outside the range of Alex's weapons. A transmission crackled through the comms, the voice low and guttural, speaking in a language Alex didn't understand. Kala's eyes snapped open, her glow intensifying. They're testing us. Stay calm. Calm. Alex barked. They've got guns pointed at us. Kala didn't respond. She raised her hands, her glowing fingers weaving intricate patterns in the air. Alex felt a surge of energy pulse through the bond, a strange mix of fear and defiance that wasn't entirely his own. The Predator ship moved closer, its scanners sweeping over them. Alex gripped the controls, his heart pounding. This was it, the moment of truth. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, the scanning stopped. The Predator ship lingered for a moment, its engines humming, before turning and retreating into the void. Alex let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Did it work? Kala lowered her hands, her glow fading. For now, she said softly, but they'll be back. And next time, they won't underestimate us. Alex slumped back in his chair, his mind racing. He had survived the encounter, but the game was far from over. And deep down, he knew Kala was right. The real fight was just beginning. Into the Predator's trap. The Predator ship loomed ominously on the horizon, a massive, jagged silhouette against the cold backdrop of distant stars. Its dark hull seemed to absorb the light around it, making it appear like a hole in the fabric of space itself. Alex tightened his grip on the controls, his knuckles white. The situation had gone from bad to worse. The hunters were no longer searching. They were stalking. Kala stood beside him, her glowing skin flickering faintly as if mirroring her inner turmoil. The bond between them was still active, and Alex could feel faint traces of her anxiety mingling with his own. It was unsettling, like having an uninvited guest rummaging through his emotions. They're moving to flank us, Kala said, her voice calm despite the tension. We have a few minutes before they fire again. A few minutes. Alex snapped, his hands flying across the console. That's barely enough time to come up with a plan. Kala turned to him, her expression unreadable. The bond gives us an advantage. We can outthink them. Alex shot her a glare. Outthink them? They've got a ship twice the size of ours and weapons that could shred us in seconds. What part of that screams advantage to you?" Kala stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. Her touch sent a strange warmth through him, calming his frayed nerves. "We have something they don't: unpredictability. They're predators, Alex. They rely on patterns, instincts. If we break the pattern, we can survive." Alex shook his head, muttering under his breath. "Unpredictable doesn't mean invincible." The ship rocked violently as a bolt of energy grazed their shields. The proximity alarms blared, and Alex cursed, jerking the controls to veer away from the incoming fire. He could feel the heat rising in his chest. Anger, fear, and frustration all rolled into one. Kala moved to the co-pilot's seat and strapped herself in. "I can disrupt their systems, but you'll have to get us closer." "Closer?" Alex barked. "Are you insane? We barely survived last time." "They won't expect it," Kala argued. "It's the only way. If I can access their bio-network, I can sever their connection to the mark. It will give us a chance to escape." "And if you're wrong?" Alex asked, his voice tight. Kala met his gaze, her eyes filled with a mix of determination and vulnerability. "If I'm wrong, we're dead anyway." The descent into danger. The plan was simple, but executing it was anything but. Alex set the ship on a collision course with the Predator vessel, weaving through its weapon fire with sharp, precise maneuvers. Each near miss sent a jolt through the hull, and the ship's systems screamed in protest. Kala sat with her hands hovering over a glowing interface she had conjured through their bond. Strange symbols and patterns flickered across the display, alien and incomprehensible to Alex. Her focus was unshakable, her lips moving silently, as if she were reciting a prayer. "Almost there," she said, her voice strained. "Keep us steady." "Easy for you to say," Alex muttered, narrowly avoiding another barrage of energy bolts. The Predator ship was now close enough to dominate the viewport, its sharp edges and pulsating lights casting an eerie glow across the cockpit. Suddenly, the hunter vessel unleashed a new weapon. A swarm of drone-like constructs spilled from its hull, each one glowing with the same ominous blue light. They moved like a school of fish, weaving through space in perfect synchronization. "Great," Alex grumbled. As if this wasn't hard enough. "They're scanning for us," Kala said, her tone urgent. "They're trying to pinpoint the bond." Alex's grip tightened on the controls. "How do we stop them?" Kala closed her eyes, her glowing skin brightening. "Trust me." "That's not an answer." Alex snapped, but it was too late. Kala's presence surged through the bond, stronger than ever before. It was like a wave crashing over him, pulling him into her thoughts and instincts. For a brief, disorienting moment, Alex saw the world through her eyes. The Predator ship wasn't just a mechanical construct. It was alive, a network of bioorganic systems pulsing with alien intelligence. He could feel its hunger, its predatory focus on them. And then, just as suddenly, he was back in his own mind, gasping for air. "What the hell was that?" he demanded, his voice shaking. Kala didn't answer. Her hands moved in rapid, precise motions across the glowing interface, and the symbols shifted and changed. The ship's lights dimmed, and the hum of the engines grew quieter. "What are you doing?" Alex asked, his heart pounding. "I'm masking us," Kala replied. "It's temporary, but it will confuse their drones long enough for us to get closer." The Predator's weakness. As the drones swarmed around them, the ship slipped through their net, now undetectable thanks to Kala's interference. The Predator vessel loomed ahead, its hull bristling with weaponry. "Brace yourself," Kala said. "I'm going to make the connection." Alex barely had time to react before a wave of energy pulsed through the ship. The bond between them flared, and he felt a sharp, searing pain in his head. Images and sensations flooded his mind. Kala's memories, the Predator ship's systems, the overwhelming pressure of their presence. Through the chaos, he caught glimpses of the Predator ship's weakness, a network of nodes deep within its structure, vulnerable to disruption if targeted correctly. Got it, Kala said, her voice triumphant. I severed their connection to the mark. The Predator ship's lights flickered, and the drones froze in place, their synchronized movements faltering. Alex didn't waste a second. He pushed the engines to full power, veering away from the massive vessel. They're disoriented, Kala said, but it won't last. Then let's not stick around to find out how fast they recover. Alex replied, his voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through him. As the Predator ship shrank in the distance, Alex finally allowed himself to breathe. Kayla slumped back in her seat, her glow dim but steady. We did it, she said softly. For now, Alex muttered, but something tells me this isn't over. Kala nodded, her expression grim. It's never over. The silence of space returned, but Alex knew better than to relax. They had survived the encounter, but the Predators were still out there, waiting for their next move. And deep down, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that their bond had only just begun to reveal its true purpose. The betrayal. The Predator ship was finally out of sight, its hulking shadow swallowed by the endless void of space. The Orion floated silently, its engines running low to avoid detection. Inside, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Alex sat in the pilot's chair, staring blankly at the controls, his mind reeling from the chaos of the last few hours. Kala leaned against the wall, her glowing skin dim and flickering. The strain of the bond and her effort to mask them had clearly taken its toll. She looked fragile now, more alien than ever. But Alex didn't feel pity. He felt anger. You lied to me, he said, his voice low and cold. Kala blinked, her dark eyes narrowing. What are you talking about? Alex stood abruptly, his chair spinning slightly behind him. The mark. You knew about it the moment you came on board, didn't you? Kala's silence was damning. You knew I was already marked. Alex continued, his voice rising. That's why you chose me. This whole ritual wasn't about saving both of us. It was about saving you. Kala sighed and straightened, her glow brightening slightly. It wasn't like that. Really? Alex snapped. Because it sure feels like I've been dragged into someone else's war. Kala stepped forward, her expression shifting from weary to defensive. You think I wanted this? Do you have any idea what it's like to be hunted your entire life? To know that the moment you stop running, you're dead. And that justifies using me. Alex shot back. You didn't even give me a choice. Kala's voice hardened. You had a choice. You could have left me outside your airlock to die. But you didn't. Don't pretend you're some helpless victim here. The bond between them pulsed faintly, and Alex felt a flicker of her emotions. Anger, fear, desperation. It only fueled his own frustration. You should have told me, he said, his tone softer but no less firm. I deserved to know what I was getting into. Kala's shoulders slumped, and for a moment, she looked genuinely regretful. You're right. I should have told you. But if I had, would you have helped me? Alex didn't answer. He didn't need to. They both knew the truth. The aftermath. The silence stretched between them, heavy and uncomfortable. Alex turned back to the controls, his fingers dancing across the panel as he set a course for the nearest safe zone. The ship's energy reserves were dangerously low, and they couldn't stay adrift forever. Where are we going? Kala asked, her voice quieter now. Somewhere far away from all this, Alex replied without looking at her, assuming we make it there. Kala moved to the co-pilot's seat and sat down gingerly, her movements slow and deliberate. You're not marked anymore, she said. The bond severed their connection to you. That's supposed to make me feel better, Alex said, his eyes fixed on the viewport. I'm still connected to you, aren't I? What happens when they come after you again? Because they will. Kala hesitated. The bond. It changes things. They can't track us the same way anymore. But yes, they'll come. They always do. Alex leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. Great. So I've gone from explorer to fugitive. Exactly what I signed up for. Kala looked at him, her expression unreadable. I didn't ask for this either. The bitterness in her tone caught Alex off guard. He turned to face her, and for the first time, he saw not just the alien warrior but the person underneath. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for survival, for the chance to live without fear. And now, so was he. A desperate revelation. The ship's proximity alarms suddenly blared, jolting them both to attention. Alex's heart sank as he checked the scanner. A small craft was approaching fast, its design unfamiliar but unmistakably hostile. It's not them, Kala said, peering at the display. It's something else. Something else. Alex muttered. That's supposed to be comforting. The ship shook as the incoming vessel fired a warning shot, its weapons precise and deliberate. Whoever they weren't here to talk. Kala's glow brightened, and she turned to Alex, her expression urgent. We have to run. We can't, Alex said, his voice tight. The engines won't hold up in a chase. Then we fight, Kala said, standing and moving toward the weapons console. With what? Alex shot back. We're barely holding this thing together. Kala didn't answer. Instead, she pressed her hand against the console, and her glow intensified, spreading across the interface like a living web. Alex felt a strange pull in the bond, as if she were drawing energy from him, and from the ship itself. What are you doing? Alex asked, alarmed. Giving us a chance, Kala replied through gritted teeth. The ship's systems flared to life, the power levels spiking dangerously high. The weapons array hummed with energy, and the lights flickered as Kala poured herself into the connection. Whatever you're doing, make it quick, Alex said, gripping the controls. The enemy craft was closing in, its weapons charging for a full assault. Kala's eyes snapped open, glowing with a brilliant, unearthly light. Now, Alex didn't hesitate. He fired the ship's main cannon, and the blast tore through the void, striking the enemy craft dead center. The vessel exploded in a fiery burst, its debris scattering into the darkness. As the light faded, Kala collapsed against the console, her glow flickering weakly. Alex rushed to her side, catching her before she hit the floor. Kala, he said, shaking her gently. What the hell was that? She opened her eyes slightly, a faint smile on her lips. The bond. It amplifies more than just minds, but it takes a toll. Alex stared at her, realization dawning. You can't keep doing this. It's going to kill you. Kala's smile faded, and she looked away. If it keeps us alive, it's worth it. Alex shook his head, his grip on her tightening. Not like this. The bond pulsed faintly, a reminder of their shared fate. As Alex carried Kala to the medbay, one thought echoed in his mind. Survival was no longer just about running. It was about fighting and figuring out who, or what, he had truly bonded with. The final ritual. The Orion limped through the void, its systems battered but still functional. Alex sat in the cockpit, his eyes fixed on the sprawling emptiness ahead. Every muscle in his body ached, and the bond with Kala hummed faintly in the back of his mind, like a constant reminder that they were far from safe. In the medbay, Kala rested on the cot, her glowing skin dim and pale. She had overexerted herself during their escape, using the bond to supercharge the ship's systems. It had saved them, but at a cost. Alex felt her exhaustion as if it were his own, a strange and unsettling side effect of their connection. The ship's proximity alarm blared, shattering the quiet. Alex's heart jumped into his throat as he checked the scanner. A massive ship was emerging from hyperspace directly in their path. Not just any ship. The Predator vessel. Damn it, Alex muttered, slamming his fist against the console. I thought we lost them. Kala stirred in the medbay, her voice faint through the comms. They They must have recalibrated. The bond wasn't enough to keep us hidden forever. Alex cursed under his breath. Well, they've found us now. What do we do? Kala's reply came after a long pause. There's one last thing we can try, but it's risky. Riskier than getting blown to pieces. Alex shot back. Kala's voice steadied, though it was still tinged with exhaustion. It's the final step of the ritual. A full merge. It'll break the mark permanently, but it's irreversible. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Alex felt a cold weight settle in his chest. Irreversible. What does that mean? Kala hesitated. It means we'll be bound. Completely. Our minds, our emotions, even our life forces. If one of us dies, the other won't survive. It's permanent. Alex's breath caught. The idea of being tethered to someone, of losing himself entirely, was terrifying. But so was the prospect of dying at the hands of the predators. How do we even do it? He asked, his voice quieter now. Kala's glow brightened faintly, a sign of her gathering strength. We have to link fully. No barriers, no resistance. You'll see everything I am, and I'll see everything you are. It'll feel overwhelming, but you have to trust me. Alex ran a hand through his hair, his thoughts racing. Trust. The word felt like a bitter pill, but what choice did he have? Let's do it, he said finally, his voice firm. Whatever it takes. The merge. Kala joined him in the cockpit, her steps unsteady but purposeful. She placed her hands on the glowing console, and the bond between them flared to life. Alex felt a wave of warmth and energy, more intense than anything he'd experienced before. Sit, Kala instructed, her tone gentle but commanding. Close your eyes and focus on the bond. Let me in. Alex obeyed, sinking into the pilot's chair and shutting his eyes. The bond pulsed stronger, and he felt Kala's presence envelop him like a tide. Images flooded his mind. Her memories, her fears, her deepest secrets. He saw her as a child, running through alien forests, her family torn apart by the predators. He felt her pain, her loneliness, her desperate will to survive. In turn, Alex felt himself opening to her. His own memories spilled forth, his childhood on Earth, his first taste of space exploration, the loss of his team in the ambush. He felt exposed, vulnerable, but Kala's presence was steady, comforting. It's working, Kala said softly, her voice echoing in his mind. We're almost there. The ship rocked as the predator vessel fired a warning shot. Alex's eyes snapped open, and he saw the ship looming closer, its weapons powering up. We don't have time for this, he shouted. Kala's glow intensified, filling the cockpit with light. Trust me. The bond surged, and Alex felt a jolt of electricity course through him. His mind and Kala's fused completely, their thoughts and emotions becoming one. He could feel her strength, her resilience, her defiance. And she felt his determination, his resourcefulness, his unyielding will to fight. Together, they reached out through the bond, connecting to the predator ship's bio-network. Alex felt its cold, alien intelligence pushing back, but their combined force was too strong. Kala guided him, her instincts sharp and precise, and they severed the network's control over the mark. The predator ship's systems faltered. Lights flickered, and its weapons powered down. Alex felt a surge of triumph, but it was short-lived. The ship began to move again, this time preparing for a full assault. They're going to ram us, Kala said, her voice trembling. The last stand. Alex gritted his teeth, his hands flying over the controls. Not if I have anything to say about it. The bond amplified his reflexes, Kala's instincts guiding his every move. Together, they maneuvered the Orion with precision, dodging the predator ship's charge. Alex fired the last of their weapons, targeting the predator's engines. The shots hit their mark, and the predator ship spun out of control. It veered away, its hull ablaze, and disappeared into the void. Alex slumped back in his chair, his chest heaving. The bond pulsed faintly, a steady reminder of their connection. He turned to Kala, who was leaning heavily against the console, her glow flickering but steady. "We did it," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Kala nodded, a faint smile on her lips. "We did." But as the silence returned, Alex couldn't shake the weight of what they had just done. The bond was permanent now, and their fates were forever intertwined. Survival had come at a cost, one that neither of them fully understood yet. "Let's get out of here," Alex said, setting a course for the nearest safe zone. Kala sat beside him, her presence a constant in his mind. For better or worse, they were in this together. And whatever came next, they would face it as one. The showdown. The Orion drifted through the void, its systems barely operational. The Predator ship, though crippled, was far from defeated. Alex and Kala watched from the cockpit as the behemoth vessel loomed in the distance, its hull glowing faintly with residual power. Even wounded, it was a predator through and through, waiting, watching, preparing for its next move. Alex leaned back in his chair, exhaustion weighing him down. The bond with Kala pulsed faintly, a constant presence in his mind. Her emotions flickered through him, exhaustion, fear, but also determination. It was strange, comforting, even, but there was no time to dwell on it. "They're not retreating," Alex muttered, his voice tense. "They're regrouping." Kala, sitting beside him, nodded grimly. Her glowing skin was dim, and the strain of the bond was etched into her features. Predators don't give up. They adapt. They'll come at us harder this time. Alex clenched his fists. "We don't have the firepower to take them head-on." Kala's gaze turned toward the viewport, her expression distant. "We might not need firepower. If we can outthink them, we can end this." Alex raised an eyebrow. "How exactly?" "Because I'm all out of brilliant ideas." Kala turned to him, her dark eyes locking onto his. "We take the fight to them." A desperate plan. Alex stared at her, disbelief washing over him. "You're kidding, right? You want to board that thing?" Kala's glow brightened slightly, a flicker of resolve. "Their ship is bioorganic. Its core isn't just machinery, it's alive. If we can disable it from the inside, they'll lose control. And how do you expect us to get on board without getting blasted into space dust?" Alex asked, his voice dripping with skepticism. Kala's lips curved into a faint smile. "You let me worry about that." Alex opened his mouth to argue but stopped. He could feel her confidence through the bond. A steady pulse of certainty that somehow eased his doubts. Against his better judgment, he nodded. "Fine," he said. "But if this gets us killed, I'm haunting you." Kala's smile widened just a fraction. "Deal." The infiltration. The Orion approached the Predator ship under the cover of darkness, its systems running on minimal power to avoid detection. Kala worked quickly, weaving the energy of their bond into the ship's interface. Alex felt the strange warmth of her presence as she manipulated their systems, blending them with the Predator ship's biosignature. "They won't see us coming," Kala said, her voice steady despite the tension. Alex tightened his grip on the controls. "Let's hope you're right." As they closed the distance, the Orion latched onto the Predator ship's hull with a quiet thud. Alex and Kala suited up, their breathing loud in their helmets as they moved through the airlock. The bond between them thrummed steadily, a reassuring rhythm in the silence of space. Inside the Predator ship, the air was thick and humid, carrying a faint metallic tang. The walls pulsed faintly, organic and alive, like the interior of some great beast. Alex fought the urge to shudder. "This place is a nightmare," he muttered. Kala moved ahead, her glowing skin casting faint light in the dim corridors. "Stay close. The core will be heavily guarded." Alex followed, his plasma rifle at the ready. The bond sharpened his senses, allowing him to move with precision and focus. It was unsettling, but he couldn't deny its effectiveness. After navigating a maze of twisting corridors, They'd reached the core. It was a massive, pulsating structure, its surface covered in glowing veins that pulsed with energy. The room was guarded by towering creatures, half machine, half organic, their movements unnervingly fluid. "We can't fight them all," Alex whispered. "We won't have to," Kala replied. She closed her eyes, and Alex felt a surge of energy through the bond. The creatures hesitated, their glowing eyes flickering as if confused. "Hurry," Kala said, her voice strained. "I can't hold them off for long." Alex moved quickly, planting explosives around the core. The bond guided his actions, Kala's instincts and knowledge blending seamlessly with his own. He worked faster than he thought possible, his movements precise and deliberate. "Done," he said, stepping back. "Let's get out of here." Kala opened her eyes, her glow dim and unsteady. "Go. I'll hold them off." Alex froze, turning to her. "What? No, we're leaving together." She shook her head, a sad smile on her lips. "If I stay, I can ensure the blast takes out the entire ship. If I go, they might recover." "No," Alex said firmly. "We'll find another way." "There isn't time," Kala said softly. "You have to go. Trust me." Alex felt her resolve through the bond, a crushing weight of certainty. His chest tightened. "You can't just—" "Alex," she interrupted, her voice breaking. "Thank you. For everything." Before he could respond, she pushed him back toward the exit. The bond flared one last time, a wave of warmth and sorrow washing over him. And then it was gone. The escape. Alex sprinted through the corridors, his heart pounding. Without the bond, the silence in his mind was deafening. He reached the Orion just as the Predator ship began to shake, the explosives detonating in a chain reaction. The Orion detached and shot into space, Alex's hands moving instinctively over the controls. He watched as the Predator ship imploded, a brilliant flash of light consuming it before the void swallowed everything. Alex sat in silence, the glow of the explosion reflected in his visor. He felt empty, hollow. Kala was gone, and with her, the bond that had become a part of him. The aftermath. Weeks later, Alex found himself back in known space, the Orion repaired but quieter than ever. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. The bond had been more than a connection. It had been a lifeline, a reminder that he wasn't alone. As he stared out at the stars, a faint warmth flickered in the back of his mind. It was distant, almost imperceptible, but it was there. A spark of hope. Alex leaned back in his chair, a small smile tugging at his lips. "You better not be haunting me, Kala." And in the silence of the void, he swore he felt her presence, faint but steady, guiding him forward.